All right, going live in three, two, one. Well, this is No Limits with Amanda, episode number 10. How are you doing, Amanda?
I'm doing really well. It's been a crazy few weeks. I feel so bad that we've kind of been disconnected, but things
Oh.
have been a little nuts. But I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling like ready to be back and talking and ready to connect.
I got to ask you where you are. I mean, about the weather because it is like it got so warm today. I was expecting. It almost got up to 70 where I'm at. Have you been experiencing this kind of warming trend?
Whoa, almost 70. That's incredible. No, here it was about 55 today, but it was really mild. So it was actually really like a pleasure to take the dog for a walk today.
Oh, okay. I was actually sweating and I was like, what, why is it so hot? And I looked, it was like the temperature was like 67, 68 degrees. I was like, oh my goodness. So I actually had to go out and turn the fans on. I didn't turn the air conditioning on. I was thinking about it. But and I walked outside and it was definitely mild out, very warm outside. Relatively warm outside. So but
That's actually like when it gets like that, it's almost concerning. It's like, okay, so it's December. So is it really supposed to be that warm at this time of the year? I feel like it gets a little concerning.
yeah. I remember one winter several years ago where it like we got like 70 degrees like in the end of December. And then for some reason, I don't know if it was related or not, but for the rest of the winter, it was very, very mild. It was like not really that warm, but like January was pretty decent. No major snowstorms or anything. So I don't forget if this is a trend or if maybe this is just the last minute, like we're gonna have like warmth and then all of a sudden it'll be freezing cold, like bitter temperatures for the entire winter or something. So
I am so not a fan of the cold either. I hate it. I hate the snow. Oh, I love to just be warm. So I'm gonna have to get used to this.
as far as when my dad says he's like 70 76. I think he's pretty up there, as far up there, but he said he actually likes the cold. And I was like, really? And you usually think older people would like the warmth. He says he likes the cold primarily because he says he can go inside and get warm. And I was like, oh. so so in actuality he does like the warm, but for so yes, it's kind of a bizarre logic there. He likes the cold so he can get warm. So do you remember what our question was from last week?
Honestly, no, I don't.
Oh, okay. Let me see. What was the date of our show here? I can look it up there. There's a feature on here I didn't realize till very recently we could do that. Our last show was it November the 18th or was it the let me see. Uh no. Wait, maybe it was the yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it was. Do you remember?
Me?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was like, can you hear me? I don't know if I just froze or what happened.
I think you did.
Oh,
I think for a
yeah,
second there, I think you did. So yeah, that's why I was concerned. Yeah. Well, do you remember? I don't know if you said the dates. Do you remember what date it was?
I don't. I'm like, I have to start keeping notes, I feel like.
See, I got November the. Wow, it must have been. Wow. Okay, hold on. Sorry.
It,
Let's.
it was definitely it was definitely a while ago.
Yeah, I'm scanning through here. Let's see. Our last show was. Oh, okay, November the 4th. Does that sound right? Oh, we talked about the movie, The Holiday, correct? That sounds right.
Yes.
Okay, so it has been a while. Wow. Oh, it's been almost a whole
Yeah.
month. Wow, it has been.
Wow.
I didn't
And then
realize.
and then I let you pick this movie because you weren't a fan of the holiday.
Okay, I think it was, do you trust politicians and do you think they're liars? I think that's the one. Is that it?
That sounds about right.
Okay. Okay, give me a second here. I try to bring that one up here. Oh, good. Here we go. I got it. So give me one second. All right, we got a pretty decent response with this one. And sorry for everyone who's wondering. Right before we went live, I was telling Amanda this. My computer wouldn't recognize my mic, so I had to shut everything down. So I'm kind of disorganized here a little bit. So I apologize for that this evening. So here we go. So do you trust politicians? Do you think they're liars? 70. So this is one that was this was one that was kind of worded kind of weirdly. It says, "Do you trust politicians, and do you think they're liars?" So, the first question that is, I think we realized this after we asked this. Do you trust politicians, and do you think they're liars? Is basically the opposite of each other. So, uh,
Yes.
and so some of the people actually noticed that in the comment sections below. So basically, we were looking for the second one, I guess. Do you think they're liars? And so 77% with hell yeah. 17% was after that with I don't care. 70% with I don't care and I don't vote, and only 6% with no, I trust every politician. So, and let me put these in the correct order. I do not like any governors. Let's see, that was from Jesus or Jesus. Scotty says can't trust every politician. Says Fat Laces says so to answer properly, no, I do not trust politicians. They make promises they can't keep and lie about the reason they voted against the commitments. I'm sorry, against their I know the word, I just can't pronounce it for some reason right now.
Constituent? Is that what it is?
Thank you. Best interests. Most politicians lie, but if they told the truth, they wouldn't be reelected by people who still believe them. I choose option C, death wish. I do,
Okay. That's strong language.
and I do vote and I do care. I just DGAF don't give a anymore. Phil Collins plays. Okay, so okay. Yeah. Here's one right here. You caught on to our little thing here. You made two opposite questions in the option hell yeah. I don't know. So if it's for the first or second question, yeah. Sorry about that. So.
Yep, sorry. We were very passionate about politics.
Who says Elijah? I think says Bernie, the only good one. PM. I guess I don't know what that means. PMIK. I'm not sure what he means. So. I'm not sure what this means. Where's the option for a question that would where to that yes. Some are good and some are bad. It's very sad that they made certain topics and politics controversial. I'm not American, but I hate both Republicans and Democrats. But if I had to choose, I would choose Republican. Interesting. A few are trustworthy, but most are liars. And just for someone saying he's just first comment. So, all right, yeah. Well, we're sorry about the about the questions there, but yeah, I think everyone understands the general consensus there is what we were getting at. So, yeah, I think it was pretty obvious that most people are going to say they're liars. I don't think there's. I am surprised that there is even 6% that would say yes, that they actually do trust every politician. That's kind of an extreme number right there, in my opinion. I think it'd be even less than that, maybe even less than 1%. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I think, unfortunately, the times that we're living in, it's pretty hard to trust the people in power. Unfortunately.
Yeah, especially based on the actual question, it says, "I trust every politician." Maybe you can say you trust a few, but every single one. So yeah. So, alrighty. Well, did you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
No.
Okay. Well, let's see. We were working on a question before we went live. How did you want to ask this question then, for this evening? So don't we basically. I was going to say, we're going to go with the idea of don't judge a book by its cover. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, that's totally fine. I was thinking, I don't know if I want to ask if any of our viewers have been prejudged or if they've judged somebody else. Is there a way to ask both without wording it in a confusing way like what we did last time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Have you ever been prejudged incorrectly, or are you been judged? How would you? Yeah, how have you ever been prejudged incorrectly? I guess that's worded correct. That sounds right.
Yeah, I think so. Or like, has anybody ever inaccurately judged you?
Okay. Inaccurate. Okay. Really judge you. Okay. And we can say, if so, give an example. I think that would be good, right?
Oh, yeah. That's great. I would be curious to see how people were judged.
Now, I got to confess, I prejudged you when I first met you, um, and I wasn't sure what kind of and I feel bad for saying this, but when I first met you, I thought maybe you were going to be a little bit not as friendly as you actually turned out to be, and you turned out to be
Ah,
extremely friendly and very friendly. Beyond anything I've ever, you're one of the friendliest people I've ever worked with doing this so far. So you have a very nice, warm presence about you, and just a nice conversation. And I was my thought was originally when I met you was like, oh, she's not going to open up. She's not going to be as friendly as I think you eventually led to be. I'm trying to think of the right word. And you turned out to be the exact opposite of what I thought you were going to be. So, and I
wow. See, that's so cool. I love that. Thank you for the compliment. I love that you feel like I'm warm and friendly. Like that's really how I want to be. But it's interesting to think that my picture doesn't um show that, I guess. Do I appear cold maybe?
I don't know what it was, but it's maybe because I hadn't I don't know. It's maybe it's something about your appearance. I don't know because I don't want to say anything bad because your appearance is fine. It's something I just came across the wrong way to me, and I just prejudged you the wrong way, and I feel bad for doing that. So
Oh, that's fine. Please. I love that you're being honest with me about it. I love that. I love authenticity. So I love that you're authentically telling me exactly how you felt. Like it makes
I,
me feel more connected to you, you know? It's like it's cool.
I know I've been when I was younger. People used to misjudge me sometimes. Like they would call me like I would wear my hair longer, and they'd say I was a hippie or a redneck, and I was like, no, I'm not really either of those. So just strictly on my appearance. So,
Yeah, that's interesting.
but
I honestly, my favorite. Does anybody ever ask you like what decade you would live in if you had the opportunity to live in any decade?
oh, I think we had something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What era would you live in? We gave like a list of
Hmm.
like 5 different eras, and
Hmm.
it was like the 1920s, 19th. I can't remember all the decades we left, and there was a lot of people saying, "Well, why didn't you leave the era that I like?"
Because it was interesting that you said that, people called you a hippie. I would definitely have been like a flower child, probably with like long hair and flowy clothes. Peace, love, and happiness. That would have been, I definitely would have lived in like the 60s and been at Woodstock.
Oh, the funny part is I was being called a hippie, but this was like 20 years after the hippie movement was gone. So I was like really late for that one. So, but
It's all perfect.
all right. So let's see. I've so give an example. Leave a comment here. Okay. All right. So has anyone? So what would the I guess yes and no, just simple yes and no, or how would you put that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. And no. Uh, Anything else, or would that just be a simple yes and no for this one?
I guess it would be just a simple yes and no. But could we do like yes? And if yes, are you willing to share how you were judged?
Okay, we put how about yes. Uh, yeah, we'll put on the first one. How? Okay, say it again. Wait.
So
Would
if sorry, if yes, would you be willing to share in the comments below how you like basically like how they were judged?
okay. All right. How you were judged. Would you be willing to share how you were judged? Does that look good?
I have to make it bigger. Let's see.
Oops.
Anybody ever inaccurately judged you? If so, give an example. Oh, so we already asked them to give an example. I didn't realize that. So then I guess it would just be a simple yes or no.
Okay, I'll take that out then. Okay, so I'll get rid of this one.
Or maybe add like an I don't know.
Oh, that's a good
Maybe
idea.
people don't know if they were judged.
Yeah. If I was ever judged, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You
You spelled it. You spelled it wrong. Did you see that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. It
Okay.
looks good.
Cool. All right. Has anyone ever inaccurately judged you? If so, give an example. Leave a comment. Okay. Cool. All right. Here we go. Okay. Cool. So this time we won't. It won't be. Hopefully, it won't be too confusing. It's like the last one.
No, I think that was pretty clear. Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So. All right. So for this week, let me see. This week I suggested that we look at a video, and I'm going to bring it up. Actually, I already have it up right here. Here it is, right here. Let me get rid of.
Shh. Sorry, my dog is barking. Do you hear her?
No, actually.
Oh, good.
Oh, we can hear the dog now.
Okay, I'll mute myself.
Oh, so the actually that was fine. It was like I could barely hear it. It wasn't until you actually brought it up that I could tell it was there. She was. Is it he or she?
She.
She sounded like she was angry.
Yeah, you know what? I live upstairs from my in-laws, and there's just one door separating us, and they have 3 dogs, and one of the dogs was near the door that connects my apartment to the main house, and he was there scratching, and she doesn't like that. she was being the boss.
Oh, before I go too far, I don't know if I've shown you this feature that we have here, which is kind of cool. We can actually bring up our comments directly onto the screen. So.
Oh, look at that! That's new?
Well, it's actually it was old. I just didn't know it was there the whole time. So.
Oh, how cool! So it's new to us then.
Exactly. That's
perfect.
Yeah. So you got ZX Gamer saying hi, leaving hi, bro, and I'm not sure what that means, but so hi back.
Like holla, holla.
So yeah, if anyone leaves a comment when we like it, we'll go ahead and bring it up when we can see it. And it helps me sometimes because I still need my reading glasses, which I don't have yet. So sometimes it could be very hard for me to read. So basically, this video is I asked Amanda to watch it, and we could comment on it, and I thought we could draw a correlation to the movie My Cousin Vinny. So basically, in this video, it's the essential theme is don't judge a book by its cover. I will post the link to the video in the description so people can watch it if they like. Basically, it's two guys who are bidding for the position to become the manager of this automobile shop, and definitely heard of that time.
Sorry.
As the video, the story progresses, you see the 2 of them. One of them, this guy right here, is kind of weaselly. He's like, I don't care. I'm just gonna try to get as much money as I can. It was what was it? He was whoever made the most money in a single day was going to become the next shop manager, which was kind of silly. I mean, you don't know if how much money you're going to bring in a single day. You might not have that many customers in one day. Maybe the next day might be more. So the whole idea of bringing in more money just in one single day didn't seem to make sense. If you're going to do something like that, maybe over the period of a month or something, not a single day. So basically the whole premise is whoever makes the most money through the customers in a single day would become the next manager. He was going to be unscrupulous. He was going to lie, tell people he needed things they didn't need. He looked at people, and as they come in, he would prejudge them and say, "Oh, I don't believe this guy has enough money. There's a guy, I'm trying to find him here. This guy right here. Oops, let me turn this off. Let's see if we can see him right here. This guy." He looks at him and says, "Oh, I don't think this guy has enough money. He doesn't have any money, so I'm not going to bother treating him like a nice customer." He brushes him away. The other guy is this guy right here is more caring. He's like, "Oh no, I think we can help everybody." And so as the story progresses, another person comes in, this young woman, and she says she thinks she needs to replace the spark plugs in her car or vehicle, her Jeep that she has. And they're looking at her, and the guy, the unscrupulous one, is looking at her and saying, "Oh, we can get her for more money." And the premise with her is that there's 2 basic customers that come in, her and the other guy. And throughout the whole story, basically, they treat her. Oh, the guy with the unscrupulous guy treats her like she doesn't know anything about cars, and the other guy. It turns out at the end, oh no, she actually did know how to work on, or she claims to know how to work on cars. I have some things to say about that. Um, and she is able to fix the car herself. The other guy, turns out, is not it was assumed that he was a poor person or something. He didn't have any money. It turns out he's got a lot of money and he has a lot of cars. He wants to get his several of his, or at least more than one car. He'd like to get all of his cars worked on at the shop because he's not as poor or as that's the way it came across. They thought the one guy thought he was poor and he didn't want to deal with him because he thought he wasn't going to spend any money. So both of the customers were prejudged and judged inaccurately. So unfortunately, I don't think this is a very good representation of how a shop is maintained. The whole idea that you have one guy is going to be so vicious and act like he's going to try to scam people for getting more money, especially the young woman, and then push people away. That's really not how it works in a shop. I worked in several shops when I was younger, and there is some prejudices for sure, but the one thing that drives people regardless is the money. It doesn't matter what a person looks like. If you always bring the car in, you tell them what they need, and you don't drive any customers away because you never know. Nobody ever prejudges this badly. This is a way over an exaggeration of what really goes on in a shop. You even if it looks like they don't have any money, you'll still bring the car and tell them what they need, and then you ask them, would you be able, are you willing to get the car fixed? And then they'll come back to you and say if they have enough money or not. Then you decide, then they'll decide whether they want to have the car fixed. This was just a little bit over with this guy. Is like, yeah, it was just, like I said, an over exaggeration. So with the young woman, it turns out that she does know how to work on cars because she worked on the shop, because apparently that's her dad that owns the shop. And the shop was actually named after her. And it turns out that she didn't divulge that information until the very end. And when she goes to, she actually pulls a spark plug out of the vehicle and fixes it. And she's basically, you're supposed to go, oh my goodness, I didn't know that she knew how to work on cars, and I shouldn't have prejudged her because she was a woman. And I don't, I like, again, I think this was an over exaggeration. I don't think anybody would treat a customer as ridiculously awful as they treated her. They tried to scam her and tried to say she needed $5,000 to replace the engine. And it was, this kind of stuff does not happen in a shop. So how do you feel about what you saw?
I thought it was like over dramatized. So it was made to be like a parody. So it was meant to be overly dramatic and to really so just to be dramatic. So I agree with you. I think that it was overdone, but I think that was the point of it, to show that, this guy really, the guy that was saying that, he was going to charge this woman and women are dumb and they don't know how to work on cars, like to make him look bad. So I actually wound up really loving the character that was the good guy in the shop. Like, I really liked him.
Oh, the guy with the glasses. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I gotta say that, having worked in shops, that the idea of looking at anybody, whether it's a man or a woman, and automatically assuming that they don't know how to work on cars is very common. So it's not, I don't think it's sexist to think, looking at a woman thinking that she doesn't know how to work on cars. I don't think that's sexist. I don't think that's it's because the vast majority of people that come in already don't know how to work on cars in the first place. Why would you bring a car in there if you don't, if you and the idea that she didn't divulge that she knew that she was the daughter of the owner in the first place was kind of silly for her not to do that. So it just led up to a false dilemma of sorts that wasn't really there. So I think she was, and the idea of, look, it's, if, like I said, if whether it's a man or a woman, when you're working in a shop, you automatically assume that they just don't know how to work on cars, period. Why would they bring the car in the first place? So it's, but the way, obviously there was the way the guy with the guy that was the swindler, he's obviously not very good. It was, like I said before, an over exaggeration. It wasn't, it was just too silly. It got too silly after a while, in my opinion. So, and
Mm-hmm.
also the idea that a woman knows how to work on a car, that is actually, in a way, most women don't know how to work on cars. It's there. It's not. It's some women do, but the vast majority of women out there don't. So it's not. It's not sexist to think. I automatically assume that a woman doesn't know how to work on a car if she doesn't outright say it in the first place. So I worked on shops, and I've never worked with a female mechanic. I've ever any kind. I've never even met a woman that really knows how to work on a car. I know women that know the basics of engines and things like that, but I've never met one that actually knows how to work on a car like I do. So it's not, you know, when I see a woman, I just automatically assume that they don't know how to work on a car unless they tell me outright that they do. And then we have a conversation. I can actually test them to see if they know something, like I do with a man. I do it with men too. And we'd have a conversation back and forth, and I can tell if they actually know what they're talking about. So, if like I said, I've never met a woman once who actually knows how to work on a car. So in my lifetime, if I met a woman, I would not treat her like this guy did, of course, but I would not just automatically just assume that she might know something about cars simply because she's a woman. I wouldn't do that. It just, for me, it'd be like, I'd have to have her tell me upright first that she does, and then have a conversation to verify that she knows what she's talking about after that. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was actually going to ask you a question. Being that you've worked in shops before, I've heard like that there like women in my life don't like to go to an auto shop or an auto body parts place without a man because they feel like they're going to be treated not, like I guess like a less dramatic way than this woman was treated, but also that they're going to be overcharged because they're women. Does that actually happen?
I never, when I worked in shops, I was very honest with this pricing. I would call them up and tell them what they needed. And for me, I don't remember any shops that were dishonest based on gender, but I do remember one shop that was just dishonest in general.
Mm.
I worked at a gas station, and I worked there for only like 6 months. And the guy was always trying to get people. It didn't matter if they're men or women. He was always trying to get them as much money as he could out of them. Saying they needed this or that, and he would overcharge them. So, but I don't. It's just from my point of view. I never treated anybody different based on their gender. I was always straightforward. I told them what they needed, this, and this, and if they need to get the work done, I would be honest. And I didn't, I didn't overcharge them or anything. I always went by the book. There was a book that we went by, and it would say how many hours it would cost to do that job, I wouldn't change that. It would be I would just use the exact number of hours that the book said, and whether or not it took me that long or not, it didn't matter because that's the price I would quote them to begin with. So.
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, you seem like a pretty honest guy, so I don't think that you would try to take advantage of anybody. I don't feel like it's in your personality.
Right. And to answer your question, I don't remember seeing that. Maybe to a lesser extent in some areas, maybe. But I don't remember. Most garages don't try to scam people based that I remember based on the gender. I do remember people seeing a woman and basically saying things like, "Well, she's not going to know anything about cars." But I mean, there was, like I said, it was the same thing with men too. There's no assumption that men know anything about cars when they bring it in, because why would they bring it in the first place? So, if they knew something about cars, they would try to do it themselves. So,
Mhm.
um, when the people come in, I mean, all the shops I worked at, I don't remember anything that direct as far as men and women. It was more, like I said, there was one shop where the guy was definitely trying to overcharge people, but it was everybody in general. So, um,
Mhm.
I'm that's good. It is a good question. I'd like to, if anyone has a comment about that, let us know, because I'd like to hear that. I think the story would have been better if they'd actually picked a real scenario instead of just creating their own out of thin air. It seemed like they just created this, how they perceive things, rather than actually based on what reality is. Maybe get a real female mechanic, because they're real female mechanics. You can go on YouTube and see them. I looked it up just before I watched this video, and get their opinions. Hey, how do you feel when a man comes to you, or a person comes to you and says, "You're a woman, you don't know how to work on cars. How do you react?" Get that kind of reaction, and create a scenario that's based on that, rather than this kind of flimsy thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. That's a really good show. You could like find female mechanics and see like what they've dealt with in their lives. Like if people have prejudged them and thought that they weren't smart enough, or they weren't knowledgeable enough about cars to be able to work on them. That's
And
interesting.
I will say this: we talk about women and cars. My dad's wife, he married her back in the late '90s. She came, before I bought my house, my first house. She came over. I rented a room, and I had in my room. I actually had some cylinder heads for my car, which were sitting on the ground. And she looked at them, and she knew exactly what they were. I was like, oh wow! I prejudged her. I didn't think she knew what they were because she was a woman, and I didn't think she knew how to work on cars. But it turned out she did know the basics. She wasn't a mechanic, but she did know what they were, and I was like really cool that she could identify them as cylinder heads. And cylinder heads are what go on top of you have an engine block, and above the cylinders you have these cylinder heads where the valves are located, and that's where the air and exhaust gases flow through. So, and she recognized them right away. I was really impressed. And then she told me that she used to date somebody in the past that worked on motorcycles, so she was familiar with what he did when he worked on motorcycles, something to that effect. So, and I was guilty of prejudging her. So, but when she said that, she identified, I was like, I didn't, because she properly identified them. I was surprised, but I didn't talk down to her, or insult her in any way. I was like really impressed with what she knew. So,
yeah, I would have been impressed too. As a woman, like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the other thing at the end, I will say this woman who claims this young woman, I'm based on, there's a couple of scenes on here. I have to point these out. Where she grabs she pops the hood. Did you see this? Where she pulls the spark plug out from the engine right here? I can tell you right now, based on how she's holding this ratchet in her hand and the socket and the extension, she has never picked up one of those things in her entire life.
So she's a total actress who needed to do a little bit more research, right?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, like that. Nobody holds a ratchet like that. So that's not, you don't, there's a way a certain way of holding tools. And you can tell that she's just that's the first time she's ever picked up one of those, I'm sure, just for this scene. So.
See, and isn't that so interesting? Obviously, I don't know really anything about cars either. So I didn't catch that at all. And like you, somebody who has experience working with these tools, immediately caught it. And you were like, well, she's definitely an actress.
And the funny part is when she pulled out the way the ratcheting sound is, there's a ratchet, is like a clicking sound when she's doing the loosening and the tightening. I could tell that she did it like when you take something off, it clicks one way, and when you put it back on, it clicks the other way. That makes sense, right? Because you're loosening and tightening. When she was loosening and tightening, the ratcheting sound made the same, as if it was both on, and instead of being on and off, is on and on. So when she was tightening, it made the sound like it was loosening instead of tightening. So, so it was very obvious that it was. And the other thing that was kind of funny was this little right here, the check engine light. As soon as she put the spark plug in, she turns it on, and then she goes to turn the key on, and then the check engine light just disappears. Okay, that doesn't happen. You have to start the engine up and let it go through its cycle to make sure that the spark plug is now not the problem anymore. Then the check engine light will eventually go out. It doesn't go out by simply turning the ignition to the on position. So,
so. These people, before they produced this short, they should have contacted you.
They should, contact somebody that's been working. Like I said, definitely get someone who's in the industry, especially a female mechanic. You'll gain a much better respect for the people that, especially, and she'll tell you her stories. I'm sure I definitely would bet that she had stories where people were like surprised that she know how to work on cars. You know what I'm saying? And she could probably have a lot of good stories for them to use instead of this. So
I love that.
So anyway, as far as I go, this is not a fair representation. I agree that the idea you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but at the same time, it's just not done very well, in my opinion. I think they could have done a better job to demonstrate this. So
you just feel like it could have been a little bit more realistic.
Yeah. So, and the idea, the final synopsis is, well, don't judge a woman because you don't know if she works on cars. Like I said, I don't have any problem with assuming that a woman doesn't know how to work on cars, because I have never in my lifetime ever met a woman that does know how to work on cars. Like I said, I know women that know the basics, but never actually got their hands dirty and gotten in there and actually worked on cars and pulled an engine apart or done a brake job or done the exhaust or anything that they're talking about. So So I don't think it's wrong to assume that a woman does not know how to work on cars until you actually get to know her first. It's because it's just not that common a thing. It's like
Mhm.
you meet a man and you don't automatically assume that he's a female hairdresser. You know, you don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe because there are men that do women's hair, but you don't know that. But you don't just assume that every man knows how to do female hair. Does women's hair. It's just not that. It's not going to be that common a thing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's actually something, what you're saying is actually something that I experienced when I was when I think I was in college. I went to a hair salon to get my hair done, and a friend of mine started doing hair. It was her first, I think the first salon she worked in, and the owner was this heavy set guy. He was a sweetheart, but he had this long white, like gray, so salt and pepper hair. And you would not expect him to be the guy that owned the shop that works with all women,
Oh,
but he did. He owned the hair salon, and he worked. It was all women in the salon when I went in.
oh, that's interesting. Were you really surprised? Did you like get shocked, or is it just like was it momentary, or did it like last for a little bit, or how did that work?
No, I was definitely taken aback by it. I'm still like, even when I used to go in, like, because I went to that salon for a few years, I was still be surprised that he was the guy that owned it. But
That's
he
fun.
he was great. He did it. He did hair beautifully.
Did you get your hair done by him?
No, not by him, by my friend who worked. She was one of the, like, she had a chair in his salon.
Oh, I see.
But yeah.
You had a chair. So does that mean like did she like rent a space, so to speak? How does that work?
Yeah, it depends. With hair salons, it depends. Like, some salons, you just work for the salon, but she actually had to pay like a certain fee per month for her chair,
Oh, wow.
I believe. Hmm.
Is that a common thing? I've never even heard of that. That's wild.
Yeah, I think for some salons it is common. Yeah, I don't know if it's as common now as it was years past. I would have to find that out for you. So don't quote me on that. But
Okay. Well, that's interesting to know. By the way,
Mhm.
Xavier says hello, and he asks, "Can you do a GTA 5 wanted level?" Oh, okay. So he's asking if I can do that for one of my other videos. So yeah, I actually done several videos with that already, so they're on the channel. But thanks for Xavier for the question and hello back. So we ZX Gamer is also leaving comments. I'm not sure. He keeps on leaving same questions. He did say after we talked about him, he did say, "I love you, bro," and he did say, "Ha ha ha." Cool.
We love you too, ZX.
So the other, I got to bring it up here. The other comparison I wanted to make was with the movie My Cousin Vinny. So let me bring that up here. As I said earlier, I had this all queued up. Unfortunately, just give me 1 second here while I bring it back up here. So okay, here we go.
Yeah, take your time. We are flying by the seat of our pants here tonight. Just making it work.
So the My Cousin Vinny came out. Was it 19? What year did this come out?
90. You said 92,
19.
right?
Yeah, I have it in the video title. Yeah, 1992. So, um, now in this movie, the comparison is Alyssa Milano. What's her name? That's not Alyssa Milano. What's her? Is that her name?
No,
Marissa
no.
Tomei. Marissa Tomei.
Marissa Tomei.
Excuse
Uh-huh.
me. Excuse me. I got the two confused. Um, hold on. Let me make sure I got the. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I got my list up here. Second list. Okay, so Marissa Tomei's character, she is a hairdresser, or an out of work hairdresser in this movie. But it's also divulged that previously she had worked as a mechanic on cars. So everyone looked at her and goes, "Oh, come on, you never worked on cars." And they talked down to her. The one lawyer, the defense attorney, not is the prosecuting attorney, excuse me, looks down at her and acts like, oh, it almost talks to her in like a childlike manner, like, which is kind of insulting. Like, did you ever work on cars? I'm jumping up to the scene right here. There we go.
Yeah, there it is.
So the prosecuting attorney comes up and he's really belittling to her, and she starts talking about all the work that she's done on cars. First, she says something about how her family worked on cars, her brother worked on cars, her brother's brother worked on cars. All these different people worked on cars, and so they says, well, okay, it's obvious your family is experienced in working cars, but do you work on cars? What kind of experience do you have? The Hold on a second. I'm trying to bring up a list I created. Oh, it's not here. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, take your time.
So let's see. Here we go. Got it. Okay. So I made a little list of things I can comment about this. So the thing about this movie is everything she says is very, very accurate. Okay. Based on what I know about cars, everything she says is very accurate. So that's not the fact that she's wrong about what she says. The problem I have with this is that the year this movie came out is 1992, and it's established in the movie that it's at least the year 1991. There's a reference to the two younger men than this that are accused of the crime. You can see that they're the class that when you look at the beginning, that says something about the class of 1991. So it's supposed to be the early 90s, whatever it is. All the cars that she talks about in this are from the 1950s and 60s. The problem I have with this, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. A mechanic working in cars in the early 90s is not going to know about cars that were built in the 1950s and 1960s that intricate. They're not going to know that much detail about cars from that era. They may, the only way they would possibly know that is if they were much older and they'd worked on cars during that time period, or they're working in a shop that specializes in classic cars. There's no way a modern mechanic from the late 80s, early 90s is going to know that much detail about cars from the 1950s and 1960s. And the majority of the cars that are in this movie that are the focal points of the discussion are all from that era, which leads me to believe that maybe when this movie was originally created, it was supposed to take place back in the 1960s, and maybe they jumped it up to modern day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and what you're talking about, that's incredible because I didn't even think about that. I was just so impressed by Marissa Tomei when she was up on the stand talking about the cars and accurately speaking about them because she said she worked on them with her father, right? So
Yes.
that's so like wow. You really pay attention when you watch movies.
I used to. I wish I did, but nowadays I'm just so preoccupied with other things. But back in the day, since this was an older movie, yes, I definitely paid attention to this one. So, but
Mhm.
she's going off. He asks her a trick question. Yes, the judge the attorney asks her what is the was the ignition timing for a 1955 Chevy Bel Air with a 327 four barrel. And she goes, oh, it's a trick question. And he goes, well, how's it a trick question? She can't answer the question. Then she goes to answer the question. And she says that, well, because the 1960, the 327, which is a V8 engine, in case you're wondering, which is a small block engine that would eventually became, which was a very common engine that was used throughout the mid 60s and early 70s and into the 80s. Which was a modified. They kept on changing the displacement on it. So originally it started as a 327. The later engines were 350s and so on. Anyway, but she said that there's a trick question because the 327 wasn't introduced till 1962, and then it wasn't actually used in the Bel Air, which is what he asked, until 1964. And then she says, but on the 1964 with the Bel Air and the 327, the ignition timing would be 4 degrees before top dead center. And I'm like, okay, all of that makes perfect. It makes perfect sense. But even a mechanic back in 1964 would probably not even know that answer because they'd probably have to just look it up in a book. Bringing, so many cars that are coming in, you maybe unless you had cars that were coming out on a regular basis that had the same engines, you might know that answer. But when you had the ignition timing on a car, you would usually just go to the book to make sure that the proper ignition timing was. You didn't just automatically know that stuff, all of it on the top of your head. There were just so many different variants of different engines and different makes and models. So it's the fact that she knows all this stuff is just a little too weird. The information she gave is 100% correct as far as I can tell. I didn't see anything wrong with it, and the way she delivers it is awesome. She does a fantastic job. It's just the idea that I looked up her age. She was the actor. She was the actress. She was born in 1964. So the car she's talking about was the year that she was born in, and the ones that she was talking about before were of the 1955 one. That's what 9 years before she was even born. So yeah, it's a little unbelievable in that part of it. So, but overlooking all of that, everything she talked about when it came to the limited slip differential, the positive traction, all of that is spot on. I actually learned that according to this, that the Tempest, the 1963 Tempest, the car that the actual criminals drove in, came with as far as I can tell, she's right, actually came with an independent suspension and a limited slip differential, which I didn't know. So something I learned there by her
Wow,
videos.
look at that.
But I wouldn't know that because it's like something I don't really, I don't look at certain cars on a regular basis. That's why. So, but the as far as the other thing I was thinking, well, this is supposed to be in the early 90s. The one thing I found that was kind of interesting was after she gives this little example, she talks about everything. They bring the other guy back on, and he verifies that everything that she says is correct. Okay, but the problem I have with this part of it is they're talking about cars that are almost 30 years old at this point. They're like 27, 28 years old. You don't know if those cars have been modified. So it's very common for people to have older cars to go in and modify them and put those kinds of maybe put a limited slip differential in them because they have an older car and they want to put that kind of they want to put something different in their car. It's very common for an older car to be modified. Newer car, and so the idea is like, wait a minute, she's saying it has this. This guy comes on and says yes, he's verifying it. But at that point, you would still have to go out there and look at the car to verify that it hasn't been modified so that it has those components added to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect sense. Mhm.
So, and getting back to the whole thing about prejudging, obviously, she does a phenomenal job of really relaying the idea that she knows what she's talking about compared to the actress in the other video that we saw. I would believe Marissa Tomei anytime over the other woman. So.
Mhm. I agree with that statement, absolutely.
It was very obvious that Joe Pesci's character he also worked on cars because he made some statements in the movie that showed that but they didn't really emphasize his knowledge about cars, but it was very obvious that he knew about cars. There's a scene where he's talking about when you're working on the carburetor and you're working on the jet and it actually pops out and you didn't take the time to pull the carburetor off. And now the jet falls into the intake manifold. You have the hassle of pulling that back out. All of that is like makes 100% sense. It's all accurate. So whoever wrote the script for these people knew what they were talking about. It's so funny how accurate everything is in this movie as far as the cars go. So
Mhm. They must have had, like, consultants, no, and, like, people that they worked with that knew about cars, did
yeah.
their research.
Now I would like to also talk about how accurate the legal aspect of this is. I've watched a couple of different lawyers on YouTube talk about how accurate everything is in this movie, about how the two young men were arrested. Oh, and I gotta say, what's his name? What's his name? Who's the
Ralph Macchio?
Ralph Macchio? Yeah, he aged really well. Have you seen him
Oh,
nowadays?
yeah. Yes, he still has, like, that young face.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
he's older than me, and he looks younger than me. How's that happen? So, of course,
Hollywood, I guess.
I watched. He's in a new TV show that's called Cobra Kai. I don't know if you've seen that, and it's based on the Karate Kid from the 1980s. So he's reprising the role he played back in Karate Kid, but that character is now older. And I was like, wow, he really did it. It's like I said, he just aged very well. So anyway, um, the lawyers talked about how when he was arrested, how the cops brought him in, how he questioned, and everything that he talked about is fairly accurate. There are some things that they said. I will point out that during the legal proceedings that were going on here, when the lawyers were coming up and walking around and questioning the witnesses, the area that's in front of the judge they could refer to that as the well. So right where they're walking around,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to get to a scene where I can demonstrate this more better. Okay, right up here when the lawyers are walking around, like he's walking around, the lawyers would never do that in a real court setting. Um, they would never. They would always ask their questions from their seat. They would never walk around. And they said this was just done for dramatic effect. So they said that the people who made the movie did this. They were taking what's the expression? They were taking artistic liberties with this.
Mm, yes, you got it. Mhm.
So so they would always ask their questions from the seats. They wouldn't be walking around like there's a scene where he slaps his hand to grab their attention. Oh well, I thought he was going to, but you get the idea. Everything would be done from his seat. He would not be walking around. The only time they ever get out of their chair is maybe if the judge asks them to come over and talk to them in like maybe a private chat or something to that effect. So,
Mhm.
There's a scene at the beginning. I think this, okay, this lawyer right here, the one that the other guy hired, he gets all nervous and stumbles and everything. I have a hard time believing any lawyer would be that nervous. I mean, I guess there could be, but how could you be? He looks like he's up there in age a little. It's not like he's a fresh attorney. At least he doesn't look like one. Um, it just seems a little unlikely that he would be that nervous of being questioning people on the stand like that. So,
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
but we getting back to the when they were arrested. There's a scene at the beginning where he's quite the Ralph Macchio. They don't know they're being brought in for murder. It's right here. And he goes, the cop says to him, and when did you shoot the clerk? And then Ralph Macchio says, I shot the clerk. He questions it. He's not making a statement. He's actually stating, I shot the clerk. Like he says it like a couple of times. Later on in the movie, you hear the same cop say, he was reading his testimony. He outright stated, I shot the clerk. And that the lawyers are saying the cops do that a lot. They take what you said out of context to prove their case. So that's a very common tactic that's used in court proceedings. So
Wow. How that's so interesting that like a movie is so accurate. And like you know what? You're very like inquisitive, Zoom, I feel like where you like go deeper under the layer to learn more even more about what's actually happening. I feel like I watch movies a lot of times to escape reality sometimes. So I don't really pay as much attention. I'm not as noticeable of details like you are.
oh, okay. the
It's just really cool. It's really cool because you're pointing out so many things to me that I really never even would have noticed.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. The and I'm trying to think if there's any. I'm showing this too. I hope it's very entertaining too. So, um,
I'm
the,
having a good time. I don't know. I don't know if any of our of our listeners are. If any of you are having a good time, write in the comment. Let us know.
another thing I'd like to add about the cars, the car he's driving right here is a 1962 Cadillac. So the idea this goes back to the idea that maybe this movie was originally supposed to take place back in the 1960s because he's driving such an older car. The idea of driving such an older car from New York all the way to Alabama in 1990, a car that's at that point is 30, it's actually 32 years old because the movie came out in 92. This is a 62. That makes it 30 years old. Who would drive a 30-year-old car across the country unless you're like in a car show, taking it like some people do that, but they'll do it like in the middle of summer, not the middle of winter, this is taking place in January, they said. And they would drive their car from New York all the way to Alabama, a car this old, which there's a very good chance that it could possibly break down. And if it broke down, you would most likely be stuck there because you might be able to fix it yourself because they obviously know how to work on cars, but where are they going to find the proper parts for it? Cars that old are very hard to find parts for. And if you didn't have the time, maybe you want to take it to a shop and let them work on it. They're going to say, I don't want to touch that thing because it's too old. Most shops cannot stand cars that are that old. So,
Yeah, I used to host a show on Staten Island a while ago where they were all classic cars. I used to do classic car shows. And you're right. Like a lot of these people will restore the cars either to their original beauty or they'll, like what you said earlier, they will change and add on things and make them a little bit more modern on the inside. And then they'll show them. And then they will drive them across country during the summer, not when it's the winter and not when it's not the best time for these cars to be traveling because they don't like them to get any kind of damage.
right, right, and add to this scene right here, this does not look like a show car. Obviously, it looks like a regular driver, a daily driver car. So
Mhm.
you might have they do know that a lot of older people tend not to sell their cars. So like in the shops, I remember like you'd have an older person say in their 70s would come bring the car and then they would never sell their car. They'd drive a car that was 30 years old into the shop to get it repaired. But they were a local driver. They weren't driving across country in those cars. So
Mhm.
the whole concept is kind of, it's like I said, I'm nitpicking at this. I know, but it's still it leads, like I said, it leads back to the idea that maybe this was supposed to take place at an earlier time originally. They just rewrote the script to make it more modern. So um, the other thing I wanted to add was the town. Um, the way the people acted in the town. Uh, when I was 19 years old, I spent 3 weeks on my uncle's farm, but it wasn't in the South. This is the South. My uncle's farm was in a extremely rural area like this, and I will say that I think they captured the feel of a small town very accurately. Um, I remember my uncle when I came in there. I was 19. He said I would be perceived as a city slicker. The way I looked, the way my car looked, the way I handled myself. So
Mhm.
I didn't dress like these two though. Not the I didn't live I wasn't like the Joe Pesci's character at all. So, but I didn't dress like the locals did either. So the way the town get and the funny part, I will say this, there was a scene where they walk when they walk into the bar here. Uh where they walk in and the people look at them because they're dressed. They're right here. Oh, the music stops. They just look at them because they like stand out. I actually had that happen to
Mhm.
me. I walked into a club and it was like a bar or something, and everyone just stopped and looked at me.
Wow. See, so it's like you were being judged,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
So
Very
mhm.
much so. Yeah, very much so. And it was the whole scene. The music didn't stop playing. I don't know if there was music, but everyone just stopped and looked at me. And one of the guys said, because I had my hair like when I was longer, my hair I let it grow out a little bit longer. I had more like I have like an afro kind of effect. My hair doesn't go down to the back; it goes out. So I have curly, frizzy hair. So I had my hair in a bandana, and my hair was out. And so the guy looked at me and says, "Oh, look, it's Pocahontas." So it
Oh,
was just
wow.
it was just very bizarre, and but I could relate to this scene though, walking in, everyone just stopping and looking at me, because it definitely happened to me. So I kind of look like maybe like this guy a little bit, but not really, not really. So uh, now the other thing I wanted to point out to this in this movie was I looked up the ages of Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei, and they are Joe Pesci is 2 years older than my dad, and Marissa Tomei is 4 years older than me. So I'm not saying it's not there's nothing wrong with people dating and getting married that are that much of an age difference, but he's definitely old enough to be her dad in this. So
Yeah, that's the one thing that I was gonna say, so you just took the words out of my mouth. I'm like, "What? She was 28 when this was made."
yeah, and the was the thing is they put this wig on him. It's an obvious wig. I guess it's an attempt to make him look younger, but it's obviously a wig. So um, I guess maybe he's supposed to be younger than he looks. Maybe I don't know, but I mean, like I said, I don't have any problems with people, getting. In fact, my dad's mother-in-law, she after her husband died, she started dating a guy that's 20 years younger than she is, and they're together and they're happy. So there's nothing wrong with it.
Mhm.
It does definitely stand out though. So let's see. And the conversations they have, I will say the conversation with the dripping faucet and the torque wrench was also pretty spot on. So,
Uh,
I will say I did learn some legal terms about disclosure from this movie. That disclosure, she's looking at the book about, and she talks about how when you have a court case, the other side has to present their facts. You can't have any surprise witnesses. Everything has to be done ahead of time. They have time to prepare for it. And I found that that is true. All is, they're basing that on factual stuff. I had a traffic ticket. I went to court one time, and I asked about disclosure because of this movie, and they said, "Oh, well, in the county I lived in, they don't have to disclose anything until the court date itself." So I couldn't get any information until the court date. So in a sense, they did have some sort of surprise way of manipulating the case. So
wow, that's horrible. So, like, you're walking in there blind, basically.
exactly, and that's the only time the prosecuting attorney is required to disclose anything, which I thought was unfair. So,
That
but
is a little I would say that's unfair.
it wasn't a big traffic ticket. It was just a speeding ticket, but still, it's like I wanted that information. So,
It's you should have a right to know that information. It's about you. It's about your own case. Can't
Hmm.
believe they wouldn't tell you.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add about this movie?
No, just one of my favorite scenes in this movie, and it has like nothing to do with anything about being judged or anything like that. I love when she talks about hunting, and she says you're a little deer and you put your lips to the water and then bam. I love that scene.
She has yeah, she has a New York accent down. Well, I have family from, well, you're from the area, so how would you judge her accent? I have family from New York. My dad's side of the family is all from Long Island, and I hear that on a regular basis whenever I talk to them. So how would you judge their accents? Her accent,
Yeah, I
both
mean,
of
they're
them.
pretty they're pretty good. I mean, I think Marissa Tomei's is a little bit dramatic, but yeah, I mean, we all have accents. I don't hear it. That's the thing. Like people say, if I go somewhere else, I went to Maryland to go visit my cousin, and people were talking to me and they were like, "Oh, we know you're from New York. You're from New York. Can you say it? Say New York. Say New York." So other people hear it. I don't hear it. So
I I honestly don't hear it that much. I mean, when you did it there, of course, that was you were obviously trying to do it, but I don't really hear it. You very much talking most of the time of what I perceive as what they is called preferred speech. What the I'm sure you're familiar with that term. Um,
yeah, like a standard American, because I work with a voice coach actually and lose my accent because of acting and hosting.
oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah,
I did, yes. I worked with a voice coach in the past.
that's interesting because when we first started doing these shows, I kept on forgetting where you were located at, and if you had talked with a New York accent, I would have I would have definitely I wouldn't have forgotten at that point. But yeah, but yeah, they actually do you talk like you're talking right now, and they actually pick it up, or do you just like let it loose and just go back to the old ways, or how does that work?
Yeah, sometimes I do. So if I get excited about something or passionate when I'm speaking, sometimes it goes in and out. So I might lose the standard American
Uh-huh.
dialect and then go into where I got like some words sometimes it will pop out every once in a while.
The my dad's name is Martin. His first name is Martin. So whenever I see one of his brothers or sisters, my aunt or uncles, they'll call him Mort. So, not Mart, but Mort, because
Yes.
that's how they say it from New York. So and
Mhm.
I used to trick my dad one time, like if he was expecting his brother to come down, uh, I would trick him. This is before caller ID was really a thing. I call him up and say, "Hey, Mott," and he go, "Hey, you're here," and I trick him and I start laughing because it's like, no, I'm just pretending.
That's so fun.
I would like to add, and I don't know if I said this before. One of my two favorite of areas of interest are the American Civil War and Native American history. I don't know if I've ever said that before. Um,
No,
Leading up to this, there's a scene where he talks about the two Utes.
the two Utes.
Yeah, which obviously is a very funny scene. The funny part is that Utes are real people. The Utes were the people that lived. They lived in the Colorado area, and they were forced out of their native lands by European encroachment during the 1800s. And the state of Utah is named after them. So Utes are real people. I When I saw this, I was like, oh wait a minute. But there are, he goes, Fred Gwynn, the judge, says, "What's a Ute?" And I'm thinking, oh, the Ute are the Native American people that lived in the out in the West. And it's like, I mean, then he has to correct himself and say Utes. So it's actually kind of funny. There are people out there called Utes. So
That's so interesting. You are a wealth of knowledge. Do you ever play trivia games? Like, do you have bars near you where they have trivia?
I've not I've played some trivia games, but I'm usually, unfortunately, when they start doing the questions, they're usually stuff I'm not familiar with. So
Hmm.
uh, I'm not. I probably I'm good with this one, but maybe if it was something else, maybe I'd be 50-50 chance if I got all the maybe if I got them right or not. So I don't know. So um, I do know that some of the trivia stuff. it just goes over my head whenever I hear it. So
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything else. As far as the movie, how would you rate the movie itself?
Oh my goodness, what a great movie. I love it. I think it's so entertaining. And now like all the things that you've taught me about it, the accuracies, a little bit of the creative freedom they took. It's I mean, this movie's up there. I would give it a 9.
Okay, I was actually thinking the same thing. I'm going to give it a high number, like a 9. So yeah, so we're both about the same in there when it comes to that. And it definitely, for me, a high recommendation for people to see this movie. So and
Definitely.
don't judge the idea that you're seeing a couple that's definitely looks like they're really far apart in age.
Mhm. What do they call that? In May December romance, they call that,
Well,
right?
I've never heard that one. Was it a maid?
Yeah.
What?
A May December. So like the beginning May, somebody born in May, somebody born in December. So like they're far apart. They call that a May December romance.
Oh, okay. I never heard that one before. Interesting. Okay. Oh, and there was one other thing I did want to add. Now it's about the town. I said I was 19. I spent time on farm. Aside from the bar situation, I would say that this town really feels like the way that other people act is also very much like the people I encountered in the town as well. Um, like I said, he lives on a farm, but I would have to drive into the local area town. In Pennsylvania, they don't call them towns; they call them boroughs and townships. So I drive into the local borough, which was Patton, which is where my mother grew up, and it was very much like this town. The rural aspect of it is like it's so funny the way they talk. Well, of course they're talking with southern accents. They talk with where my mother's from is a Pennsylvania accent, and I can't really do that. But it was very obvious, they would look at me like I'm some sort of foreigner in their country, or in their not in their country, but in their area. And I felt out of place a lot of times, but it was the way they talk and the attitude is very much the same. Small towns have that kind of feeling to it. Have you ever been to like a small town?
Well, when I went to visit family in Georgia, and everything was so for me because coming from New York, everything here is so fast paced, and then when you go to Georgia, everything's so slow.
Oh,
Like in comparison, I remember we went out for lunch and we were there for almost 2 hours because it took so long for the food to come.
wow, really?
Yeah, but after a while, I started to get used to it and I started to appreciate the slower pace and like the idea of, well, what are we really rushing to? Like what's the rush?
Uh-huh. I remember going to restaurants in Pennsylvania. They had one called Hosses, and the I remember like that's like a saying. Like sometimes you hear people call people Hoss. Hey Hoss. I never fully understood what that meant. You ever heard that before?
No, I've never heard that.
Maybe it's a Pennsylvania thing or something. But and someone said that one time I asked what it meant, and someone said it may be a reference to Hosea, like a religious reference or something. I don't know. So
Hmm.
but I was when it was funny because I would hear people say, "Hey, Hoss." I don't think it was an insult. And then when I saw an actual restaurant called Hoss's, I was like, "Oh," it's like it just made me laugh because it's like, "Oh, they actually made a restaurant called where they do that as well." So,
That's definitely something I want to Google now.
and the other thing they had was everybody in my family anyway, my relatives. I don't know about the rest of the people in the community. They had this thing that they had called Scrapple. You ever heard of Scrapple?
I've heard of that. Yes.
And it was like just mentioning the word Scrapple, everyone was like excited because that was like the best thing in the world to my family relatives. They were like, "Oh yes, Scrapple, you got to eat Scrapple." Almost like they talked about grits in this movie. They talked about grits in Pennsylvania. It was
Mhm.
Scrapple. So and Scrapple, the way my uncle, his farm, he's passed on by the way. So I don't know who owns his farm at this point. But when I would spend the time on there, he raised pigs and he had actually fields that he tended, and he would slaughter the pigs, and I think he took them to be slaughtered, then bring the what was left back. he would actually take the heads of the slaughtered pigs and put them in a freezer. And this is like a like almost like a industrial strength freezer. It wasn't like a regular one. It was like really big. And then to make the scrapple, what they do is they bring the heads out and bring them into the kitchen. You just scrape everything off the pig's head and cook it up. That was what scrapple was.
Whoa. Oh, that's not something I'm interested in having. I'm good.
And they were like, "You got to try this. This is the best thing ever," kind of an attitude. And I tried. I don't remember thinking it was great. I don't remember thinking it was bad. But yeah, the whole thing with the pig heads was kind of weird. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to judge. To each his own. Everybody's different. Different generations like different things, but that's not for me.
Uh-huh. And I did work with a guy. Now, where my family is from, it's like the middle of Pennsylvania. It's like Altoona is like the middle of the state, and it's kind of, well, it's middle of the state, but like on the lower half of the state. So what I mean is like middle. If you're looking like east and west, it would be halfway between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but on the lower half of the state. And I worked with somebody when I was at Clear Channel who was from Pittsburgh, and I mentioned Scrapple to him one time. I said, "Oh yeah, Scrapple's a big thing up in Pittsburgh." So apparently it's a big thing in Pennsylvania. So, and if you type,
I'm sorry. I actually just had to look up Haas,
oh,
and it actually does have a meaning. It's a big person, usually a man, and it's a southeast slang.
oh, interesting.
So
Southeast.
it's a southeast thing.
It's interesting because it was definitely in Pennsylvania where I heard it. So I guess Pennsylvania is a little bit north, but yeah, I guess it could cover different areas too. So.
Oh, it could also mean a horse, or in the Northwest, it could mean a car.
Oh.
Oh, it could also mean a well-respected person.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's quite interesting. I will say, talking about Marissa Tomei, the outfit she wears in this is like, oh my, way over the top, way over the top on this. So, I can't imagine a woman walking around a small country town like that. They are way, way over. And she obviously she's a very attractive woman, but it just seems like everybody will be drawing attention. I mean, especially like outfits like this where it's like skin tight. I mean, like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. I remember the woman who, I don't know if you've ever seen this TV show, Star Trek Deep Space. Star Trek Voyager. There's a Jerry. I think her name was Jerry. I can't remember, Jerry Taylor or Jerry Ryan. I can't remember her name. She played a character where they forced her to wear an outfit that was like this, and she hated wearing it because it just exposed it. She didn't like how her body was shown like that. And it was obviously to show the curves and everything on her body. And I can't imagine wanting any. I'm not a woman, but I can't imagine any woman wanting to walk around in an outfit like that in the middle of anywhere, to be honest. I don't know. So.
No, I wouldn't be very comfortable like that.
So, I mean, and his outfits are not really over the top. They're kind of, for the funny aspect, the outfits he wears in court, but he doesn't really wear anything that's really over the top though. So, but yeah, okay. I guess we can go and wrap everything up on this one. I don't see anything else.
Okay, cool.
Let's go back to our question here. So we got 55 votes. Let me refresh that again. See what we got here. 71 votes so far. Has anybody ever inaccurately judged you? So leave a comment. 87% with yes, overwhelmingly yes. 7% with I don't know if I've ever been judged, and 6% with no. And let's see. Had a guy in high school class. He was a nasty guy with a bad attitude. Always treated me like a garbage. Always treated me like garbage. And then all of a sudden, we didn't see him for a couple of months, weeks or months. It turns out he went to some boot camp, and after he came back, he had a whole new positive attitudes, apologized to me for everything, and we were friends. He died, in a car accident a year after we graduated. Oh, okay.
Mm.
Sorry to hear that. But that's interesting about the changeover there. That kind of reminds me, I have an uncle that was like that. He was more like a cousin because we're very close in age. We're only like 10 years apart in age. So it's more like a cousin. But when we were kids, he'd come down with my grandmother. He'd pick on me all the time. And
Hmm.
when he went to the military, he came out, he was the exact opposite. He was highly respectful and treated me like I was he didn't pick on me at all. So
Mhm.
really the military, I'm not a military. My mother and my dad were in the military. I've not been in the military. So I guess the military does that to you. So
Yeah, I guess it changes you.
let's see. Renegade MS says customers thought I fit a description of this job currently doing. They wanted me to work for them personally, and I shut that S down. I'm not sure
Hmm.
what it fully means by that. Okay. Okay, and okay. Okay. So, okay. So, it's I that doesn't surprise me, the number of people saying they were prejudged. I mean, I know I've been I I know I've been inaccurately judged by people by simply how I looked at things. So, and I told you I inaccurately judged you, so you have to say yes now. So,
Yes, I have been prejudged. But happily, it turns out in a very positive way, right? So
so have you ever been inaccurately judged by anyone else though, in any other situation?
I'd have to think back to, like, a specific example of a time that I was, but I don't actually recall. So if you give me time to think about it, maybe when we come back next week, maybe I'll have a story. Because now I
Okay.
have to really think about it.
Okay. All right. Well, that was good for I like the show. If anybody thanks for everyone for participating, and we'll see you next, unless you have anything else to add, we'll go ahead and wrap everything up.
No, just thank you. This was so much fun to get back in contact and reconnect. It felt like it was so long. Like you said, it was almost a month.
Yeah,
So sorry, everybody, for that. And thank you for joining us.
I didn't realize it was that long. That's funny. I hope doesn't sound like a bad thing. I really thought it was like maybe 2 weeks at the most. I was like, whoa, I looked it up like a whole month. My goodness. So, all right.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.